Let me also just speak to some historical examples, which may help you a little bit, Brad, or perhaps not. I don't want to speak to what will help you or not, but historically, under many administrations, the United States has pursued important international security initiatives through non-binding arrangements, where that has been in our national interest in the arms control and non-proliferation area alone. Some representative examples include the U.S.-Russia deal to remove chemical weapons from Syria, the Proliferation Security Initiative, the Nuclear Suppliers Group Guidelines, the Missile Technology Control Regime. There's a lot of precedent for this being political commitments made by all sides.
In that statement, you just described them as non-binding.
Well, I think that's a legal term.
Presumably, that everyone who agrees to this, if there is something to agree to, is bound by it.
Well,
right?
yes, but there's legal terminology, so
Right,
obviously there's differences you use depending on what it is.
To clarify Matt's point, when you were giving examples of agreements, national security agreements that Congress didn't vote on, you said that from a legal perspective, the examples you gave were non-binding. So are you saying that this Iran agreement, if it materializes from a legal perspective, is also non-binding? It's somehow binding politically, but from an international legal perspective, it's not binding?
Well, I used the example of Syria, right, as an example. This framework was not legally binding and was not subject to congressional approval. It outlined steps for eliminating Syria's chemical weapons and helped lay the groundwork for successful multilateral efforts to move forward. So I'm just conveying what we're talking about as it relates to the political understandings and what we're discussing with the parties.
I guess maybe this is a question you could ask the lawyers, because I'm sure it's not there. But I mean, if it was non-binding, why did the Syrians comply with it?
Well, as you know, there was an agreement, there were discussions, and they agreed to certain terms, and then it went to the OPCW, and then it went to the UN. So
actually, in the case of the Syrian agreement, there was a Security Council vote.
Well, that I just said, and then it went to the UN, to the Security Council vote.
But you're not going to have that in this agreement.
Exactly. Could you go for
I don't have more to outline for you in terms of the implementation of a political understanding that doesn't yet exist.
Is it legally binding or not, this Iran agreement? Will it be legally binding from an international legal perspective if you negotiate this agreement, or will it be something lesser than that?
I understand your question, Michael.
Commitment.
What I'm referring to is the political commitments in terms of what the next additional steps would be. I'm not sure how much farther or more information we would have. I'm certainly happy to check with our team and see if there's more we can clarify.
The problem is that you've stressed over and over again, this is not about trusting, right? This is about verifying. But then you're saying that these are political commitments, but not necessarily binding. It would seem to me that if this wasn't about trust, you would want them to be binding, not political commitments, which are your word.
That's well, Brad, we're talking about specifically how pieces. It is not that. We're talking about how specifically pieces would be agreed to between the parties. In terms of the implementation of it, I'm sure we will talk about that at the time we would have an agreement.
Since I don't understand then as I understand a political commitment, it means a person or a political entity saying, I will do this, I commit to doing this. How is that not anything other than giving your word?
Well, again, Brad, if we get to the point where we have a framework, where we have an agreement, I'm sure we will have a discussion about how things will be implemented.
I'm just asking.